Hello, Happy New Year, and welcome to the first and likely the last U2songs vlog. Um, Hi AJ,
Hello, Harry. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So I guess the biggest uh, subject for the first half of this year, U2 wise, is going to be the Joshua Tree tour. So there are some things that we always talk about, and sometimes 140 characters are not enough to do that. So we decided to just have a chat like this and see how that goes. So AJ, do you wanna maybe tell people who we are, what we do?
Well, I am Aaron, and I am based in Nova Scotia, in Canada, on the East Coast. And the gentleman in the other window is Harry, who is based in Dublin, Ireland. Between the two of us, we work on a site called U2songs.com. We are two of a larger group of staff members there who work together. The site started in 1995. I started it, and it became u2wanderer.org in 2000. And we stayed there for 15 years. And then eventually we moved into u2songs.com in the fall of 2015. And just on Friday, we updated again to make things look a little bit prettier.
Right? We have the new logo here and the new colors, the new theme, I should say.
Yeah, with all the focus on the Joshua tree, we decided to adopt the gold and black color pattern from that album. That's actually the original color scheme that we launched the site on in 1995. So it's really returning back to our roots, going to that color scheme.
Nice, good stuff. So I guess the one big thing we should probably get out of the way is all the rumors that everybody's been talking about and been stressing over or whatnot. So yes, AJ, like you've been delivering news to U2 fans the longest out there. So would you have any advice to give, any tips to even say newer fans who might be seeing U2 for the first time this year and are seeing all those rumors and are panicking and are thinking about booking flights and hotels and all that and talking about visiting other places. You've been through a lot of this before in the past with past tours, right? So any insight?
The first piece of advice I'd give anybody that's out there starting to panic about rumors is to take a deep breath. It's not official information that's coming out. There's a lot of unknowns yet. Uh, Only certain pieces have come to light. We probably don't know every city. We probably don't know pricing. We don't know the configuration of the stadium. So just take a couple of seconds and take a deep breath and relax. There's no need to get worked up until Monday if that's when the actual announcement is. At that point, that's when the panic usually sets in for me. It's certainly a good time to start looking at possible cities, places you might want to go and see the band. It may be an idea to start shopping around for some hotel ideas and stuff like that. But
Renewing
I
your
wouldn't.
u2.com subscription wouldn't be a bad thing to do, I guess, either, right?
No, no, now's the time to sign up to u2.com if you want to use that for possible pre-sale tickets if they offer it again. But that being said, that's the only money I would spend. I wouldn't spend any money on a hotel or a flight unless you can get a refund for it because things definitely change. And we've seen in the past on a number of tours that right up to the last minute, things are still changing, things are still being settled. Sometimes even after the ticket announcement, things get changed. We know in during the 360 tour, one of the Spanish dates and one of the New York dates, both of them had to be moved after tickets were already on sale. And in some cases, the band themselves don't release all of the information the first day. Look at 360. Everybody thought the last show was going to be in the United States. And then towards the end of the ticket sales, the band announced that they would be doing an additional show in Moncton that nobody was really waiting for. So it's too early yet to get too excited, but Monday we expect to have some official news from official sources. So that's when you really start planning your trips and making accommodations and stuff like that.
That's right. And to add to that, like it's sometimes it's beyond even the band's control, right? Like for example, I know in Pop Mart, Sarajevo was announced right, you know, just before the show because they weren't sure if it would happen. Like if you have any old Pop Mart T-shirts, you won't see Sarajevo in there. And I know for a fact as well that 3 days later they were playing Greece, and that was announced, but that almost didn't happen because there were strikes at the customs officers were on strike in Greece, so the trucks with the stage could not get through. And I remember they had to intervene to end the strike just so the trucks would go through and then restart the strike. So things like that always happen. So you can never be sure of whatever it is that may happen in the end.
One of the cities they always seem to have a struggle in is Dublin itself. They get wrapped up in planning commissions and all of that sort of thing. So the Dublin dates, if there are some, they usually are the last ones to get settled. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're still working on some of the final little bits and pieces before they make this announcement tomorrow.
Yeah, and the folks over at U2Start, I think earlier were saying that they did a mini, research, and they saw that hotel prices for Dublin around the rumor dates had increased, which is really a shame because it's that sort of thing should not really be happening because it just adds to the panic that that people experience with these things.
It really does, and it's a shame that the hotels start putting up their prices so quickly.
Anyway, rumors out of the way, or almost out of the way. Let's not talk about dates and venues anyway. Let's talk about other stuff. So we released an article recently about a possible single to come with this reboot of the tour, I suppose. So we talked about a few potential titles for that single. Um, well, you talked about Spanish Eyes. You talked about The Sweetest Thing, Silver and Gold. Uh, do you want to maybe just give us a brief summary of what was in the article?
Well, if they are going out and doing a Joshua Tree tour, which we're not 100% sure on at this point, the obvious thing to boost the ticket sales would be to have some sort of single sent to the radio, some sort of release, something for the background music in tour advertisements and so on. If they can get out and get something fresh on the radio, it will bring more eyes to the actual eventual tour. So the rumor to me that there is a single coming makes sense. Now, the actual Joshua Tree album had a number of really strong B-sides back in 1987. One of them was Sweetest Thing, which was eventually re-recorded and released in 1998. That was used as the lead single off of the Best Of album. So there's certainly been some of this done before where the band has gone back and taken a song and reworked it. They also did it in 2007 with Wave of Sorrow, which was on the 20th anniversary collection. That one didn't get released as a single, but it was an old song that they took and added new vocals to. So it's not entirely unheard of. Out of the singles back in the day, we had several really interesting B-sides that most people wouldn't know. Spanish Eyes. It's a song that still gets played live almost every tour when the band is in Spain. So the band still remembers it fondly and they still bring it out for people to listen to. Silver and Gold, it was re-recorded by the band for a B-side on Where the Streets Have No Name. That song actually made it into the original Joshua Tree tour back in 1987 and was recorded and released as part of Rattle and Hum, both in the movie and on the soundtrack album. So they could do something like that and pick up a B-side and either release it as is or re-record it and release it. But they could also go back and do something else. Wave of Sorrow was a song we hadn't heard before that they finished off and released new. I'm sure we haven't heard everything from the Joshua Tree yet. There's still something in the archives. The other thing they could do, and I don't know how people will feel about them touching the Joshua Tree songs themselves, but they could go back and re-record one of the songs off the album. The obvious one to me, if they were to do that, would be something like Red Hill Mining Town, which they never played live. That song is something they struggled with back in 1987. They never figured it out.
Yeah, it was rehearsed early on before the tour started, and they decided it would put a lot of strain on his voice to sing it night after night, right? And then they decided to leave it out. So maybe you're right. Maybe they could just rework on that, just re-record that, and make it, playable live this time around.
They also tried to rehearse it again later on during that tour. At a stop in Tennessee, they pulled it out on the third leg and tried it out again, but they didn't seem to figure out what to do with it. So maybe a trip into the studio would help them out and figure out a new way to do that song. It's something that I would be looking forward to if they're playing a Joshua Tree tour. I'd want to hear all the songs, I think, if they were to do something like that.
Definitely, and it would be also, well, it would of course support the upcoming tour, but it would also be an incentive for newer fans checking out, the Joshua Tree, maybe for the first time or maybe again, and have something fresh out of it as well.
The album's 30 years old now, so there's a lot of younger fans that wouldn't have been around when it was first released.
That's right.
Or maybe were quite young when it was first released. How young were you when it came out? You were 5
years old. I didn't get to follow the tour, I'm afraid, but there you go. We have a new opportunity now to do so.
But some sort of new song from that era, polished up and released this year, that would be a great way to promote a tour and any sort of re-release of the album.
Definitely. And new single, why not a new LP? There's whispers of a possible re-release of the LP as well with some added material, right? So how do you feel about that? I mean, as collectors and U2 geeks, and I guess most of the people who visit our site are as well, would welcome something like that, right?
I love any sort of new release. I buy every copy of everything from every country, so I expect I'd be buying multiple copies of whatever they would release. It depends on what they do. Some of their re-releases have been small. Back in 1995, they remastered the album and released it on a gold disc. In 1999, they took the cover on the European release and released it with a different cover. Back when the CD was originally released, it had a very blurred cover and the band was very out of focus. In 1999, they re-released it, so it was the nice, clear, crisp cover from the LP. So some of the re-releases are quite small. For the 20th anniversary, for instance, they did a much bigger re-release. They released a box set. They had some extra content. They had a nice second disc with all the B-sides, and they actually included a DVD with a concert from the Joshua Tree tour. I think it was from Paris.
That's right, yeah. And the original, the second issue, I think, of the Greek version also features in gold font a quote from the Time magazine of the time, translated into Greek, but it's not a sticker or anything like that. So I guess it technically counts as a different cover. But anyway, that's up for debate, I guess.
But it really depends. They could go with a small re-release and just re-release the box set that's been out of print for 10 years now,
Yeah.
or they could do something bigger and add some additional content, add an extra track if they do record something new. There's lots of options for them at this point. I know I'd be excited for anything that has new recording or new material on it. I certainly think there's more in the archive than we will ever see.
That's most likely true. Yeah.
What do you think? Would you look forward to some new songs?
Definitely. I mean, of course. And being the album that it is, that it's been re-released, and all the B-sides, and like you said, all the stuff that's probably sitting in a vault somewhere that would be like take Wave of Sorrow, for example, but we didn't know about, and it was such an amazing track to have. Or even for the Unforgettable Fires, what was it, Yoshino Blossom, is that how it's pronounced?
Yes.
What an amazing track, and we had never
It
heard of
is.
it before. So yeah, definitely looking forward to it.
So with this tour possibly being focused on the Joshua Tree, if rumors are true, of course, what do you think we're going to get? Is it going to be just the album? Is there going to be more to it? Are they going to go out and do a set list from 1987? What do you think they're going to do?
I think that's where it gets a bit tricky, because that we all know that U2 aren't necessarily nostalgic when looking back at their history, and this kind of contradicts this decision. But at the same time, it could be anything. Like, for example, many bands tend to do that. Like Metallica would say, okay, we're sick of the studio tour, just playing stuff on the road because we're sick of it. Maybe we're not finishing the album anytime soon. So maybe it's something like this for U2 as well. Or maybe they're just, it's something to do while they're finishing on the album, and just to keep their name out there, keep fans happy, or even Live Nation. We know that the album and the tour have been pushed back a couple of times by now, so maybe they feel like, what, maybe you should do something for these people. So that being said, coming back to the set list, like, would you really expect them to just go back and do a Joshua Tree style set list, or play the Joshua Tree from start to bottom? It's really hard to predict. I really don't know what they could do. They could do many things. They could play Joshua Tree, of course, from start to finish, or they could play a Joshua Tree style set list with "Come On Everybody" and "People Get Ready" and, I don't know, "My Hometown" and all that. But or they could even throw in a few newer songs, or even songs from Songs of Experience that are currently being worked on, much as like they did with during 360, where they kind of tried a few songs that later became parts of Songs of Innocence. So, technically speaking, the Unforgettable Fire, the Joshua Tree, Achtung Baby, this is where Experience came from for U2, right? So maybe that has something to do with it.
I've always seen the Joshua Tree as part of a trilogy of albums, which includes The Unforgettable Fire and Rattle and Hum. It's obvious that the first recordings from The Unforgettable Fire with Eno and Lanois led them to creating the Joshua Tree. Without that album, we wouldn't have a Joshua Tree. And the songs from Rattle and Hum were recorded during the Joshua Tree tour as they went through the States. So I really see them pulling from maybe all three albums as well. It would make sense to me to open up to a few other songs from that era that make sense to them, that fit that Joshua Tree, and pull out some B-sides, pull out some rare tracks. I would love to hear some of the album tracks that I haven't heard live. In 2010, I actually was in Istanbul when they resurrected Mothers of the Disappeared. I had never heard that live, and to finally hear it live, it was a really special moment for me. And it was one of my favorite moments on that tour. So I would like to hear a few of the deeper songs from the Joshua Tree that maybe haven't been played in a long, long time.
Would you be looking forward to, say, hearing Exit live again? We know that the kind of history it has and the kind of things that were connected to the song and why it was dropped, and how hard it might be to revisit it these days.
I'm always up for hearing a song I haven't heard before. So yes, I would like to hear Exit. I don't know if they would bring it out for every night or every show, but I certainly would hope they would try to attempt it. And like I said earlier, Red Hill Mining Town, that's just sitting there waiting to come to light. I would love to see that song finally make its debut on stage. It's the one song that's never been played from that album.
Very true. Speaking of stage, what about the stage? Which stage will we be getting? Will we be getting something like, say, find it, this, which we know is just collecting dust in a storage, like in a warehouse somewhere in Dublin? Or do you think we'll get the, what did we have for Dreamfest? It was the Vertigo Outdoors stage, right?
Yes, it was.
Which is already there. Or what are your thoughts?
Well, the rumor is that this tour is going to start in stadiums and probably stay in stadiums, and that it's going to be a tour in the US and possibly Europe. So those stages are certainly around, and they could easily go back to one of them or update one of them. The Vertigo stage in particular, the one that was at Dreamfest, has only been used in the US on 2 occasions at this point.
That's right. Yeah.
It was used to end the Vertigo tour in Hawaii, and it was used again in 2016 at the Dreamfest show in San Francisco. So a lot of the audience in the United States would have never seen a concert on that particular stage. So it might be an option. I would like to see them keep it somewhat simple in keeping with the album and the time. But this is U2. They always do something innovative and something new and something fresh. So I don't begin to guess what they have up their sleeve with this particular stage, but certainly hope to see something interesting in front of me if I do get to one of these shows.
That's right. And what else didn't we cover? I mean, this is not scripted or anything. That's why it's a bit chaotic. But at least we have some topics to go over. I think. What's next? Did we talk about support acts? We've heard a few things about support acts, right?
We have heard that there's a couple of support acts in some of the rumors, but again, they're just rumors out there. Although I do hear that there may be one support act from the Joshua Tree tour that may make another appearance.
This is just in, basically. It just got a tip, like a very, very, very good tip from a very good source. That let me bring it up. This is gonna be the first support act for this tour.
Ooh, look at that hair!
Yeah. Not many people know them. They're called the Dalton Brothers, and they they play 2 kinds of music. They play country and western. So so I guess it kind of fits in with the whole theme.
They look a little rough around the edges, especially that guy on the right.
And then there's another one that I heard, which aren't that big now. They haven't really supported bigger artists like that before. They mostly play, subways and small gigs like that. It's these guys here. But you can see the connection. You can see like the kind of look-alike, and the style is a bit similar as well. So these are the 2 main.
Is that Mumford and Sons?
It's maybe no, it's not. It's not.
I think I saw that.
Mumford & Sons was one of the rumors, right?
Yeah, it was. I heard that Mumford & Sons has been rumored. There's also rumors that Noel Gallagher may be showing up. The Lumineers have been mentioned as a possible support act. So it really looks like they are probably going to be using multiple acts, possibly different acts at different cities, or they might have more than one act at each concert. Remains to be seen exactly what they're doing with the support acts.
Yeah, well, the thing is, there's not much to say about support acts, right? Because even though we all go to see U2, that doesn't mean we all have the same, taste in music. So some of the support acts I might not care for, and you might love, or vice versa. But I guess the good thing about it is that since we're hearing so many things about different support acts, kind of validates the fact that there's going to be a tour. It's going to be most likely the Joshua Tree tour. So that's some of the the things we can probably take for certain at this stage before the announcement anyway. Which is
One
again
thing
rumored to be on Monday. We don't know if it's going to be Monday for sure, right?
One thing that is interesting about the rumors about a support act is the last tour didn't have any support acts. They went out in arenas and didn't have anybody on tour with them. They did have some special guests on stage from time to time. They had the Eagles of Death Metal. They had Patti Smith show up. They had Noel Gallagher showed up at one appearance. I believe you showed up at one appearance, perhaps.
Yeah, I was. They haven't been contacted though for any supporting this tour this time around.
Maybe that first act, the Dalton brothers, maybe they need a fifth member.
Maybe. But yeah, anyway, like you said, if it's stadiums this time around, they kind of need somebody to keep people warm. If it's different when it's an arena setting.
It makes sense. It really makes sense. They've had support acts anytime they've played stadiums. So the Joshua Tree, 30 years now. Is it still relevant to people today?
I don't know. You tell me. I mean, I guess for you and me, of course, it's relevant. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. But say for somebody who doesn't know U2 or who just knows U2 from some of the earlier best of hits or whatever, or heard them from their cousin or their brother, but never really bought some U2 music or went them out to see them. Like, what if the Joshua Tree was released today? Do you think people would connect with it the same way we did back in the day, or do you think things would be different now? It's kind of different it's kind of more difficult to sell. Not sell, sell, I mean, as in connect with a whole album these days, because people just tend to connect to get different songs and like songs, but not a collection of songs rather than an album that kind of tells a story.
I have to wonder. Everybody knows the Joshua Tree because of With or Without You. I still haven't found what I'm looking for. Where the Streets Have No Name. Those are really big, iconic songs that most people should know if they were around 30 years ago or beyond that. The question is, how many of them know the rest of the album? There's a lot of beautiful, gorgeous songs hidden on that album that a lot of people might not be familiar with. So this may be a chance for U2 to drum up some interest in that back album and really show them that, hey, this album, it may be 30 years old, but it is still relevant today.
That is true, yeah. And some of the newer fans even who, discovered U2 with Vertigo or Elevation and, these kind of songs, they, I think they'd still find value to hear the older songs performed live, because live is where, you really connect with a song. So yeah, it should be interesting for everybody.
I'm certainly looking forward to them being on tour again. I can't wait to see what gets announced next week. We are hearing that it's going to be Monday morning, sometime possibly between 8 and 9 a.m. Eastern time, but that hasn't been confirmed either. It's all still just part of the big package of rumors that are out there. So well, anyway, we'll see what happens on Monday.
We can probably assume it's going to be next week at some point, right? Because there's going to be loads of announcements in terms of festivals and stadiums making announcements as well. So we should know at least.
So do you want to sit and have a chat again after it's all been announced?
Sure. Well, let's see how this goes. I mean, if people like this, maybe we could do that again after the announcement, or maybe we could do it live and maybe talk to some people as well.
Sounds great to me.
Cool. Good stuff. Thanks, AJ.
Thank you, Harry. Have a great day. And hello to everyone.
See ya. Bye.